Welcome to Mastering Life's Adventures, an educational podcast about tapping into your true self, the soul, your soul, the substance of your life, to discover what life's ups and downs are really about, and how to have a greater sense of purpose, peace, joy, and fulfillment. I am Dr. Judith Holder, your host, coach, psychologist, fellow seeker who enjoys diving into the connections between spirituality, psychology, wellness, and your everyday life's adventures. All preparing and polishing you like the facets of a magnificent diamond to be your best self. If you're craving more from your life, you are in the right place. Come, let's journey together and transforming what you know into who you really are. Mastering Life's Adventures begins now.
Hi, I'm back. Have you thought about the next barrier and how it might affect the soul? And the next one I'm talking about is persistent procrastination. How might persistent procrastination affect your soul's progress? But first, I want to talk about procrastination. When you think about procrastination, you think about delaying to doing something, a task, or putting something off until the last moment. It's like you're thinking about it, and you're thinking about it, and you're thinking about it, and it's the 11th hour and needs to be done by the 12th hour, and therefore, since you only now have another hour, you try to cram everything in to try to get it done. And this can be with school assignments or work tasks that need to be done, or projects that you're having to work on and make sure you have you fulfill the timeline by which is needed. So procrastination happens to many of us. It's not out of the ordinary, but we have to realize there are 20% of individuals that it is kind of like a chronic habit. That it is kind of this habitual procrastination that happens to about 20% of people. And when that's happening to you, then that's where it might be helpful to seek some professional support, behavioral health professional who can work with you more proactively on this. And what I'm talking about today is talking about overall procrastination. And not the kind of the habitual procrastination, which is affecting your home, work, sleep, every area of your life. But this is more that it's acute enough that it's affecting some areas of your life. And it does have an impact on your soul progress, your soul growth. With procrastination, as I've alluded to, it does involve avoidance behavior. And it does involve some degree of discomfort. That's why we're procrastinating, because we're not liking the potential of what this may aspect or task or event or circumstances is requiring of us. We don't like it, and therefore we sit on it, so to speak. And this brings up that there are different aspects of procrastination that might be good to talk about, and realizing that this is not the end all and be all, but these are some of the thoughts I had as relates to this persistent procrastination that's occupying an aspect of our life. Not our entire life, but we know when it relates to this type of person or this type of event or this type of circumstance, we tend to slow down and not do what is required of us or what is being expected of us to do or fulfill. So the different types of how procrastination shows up is, for example, when there is a lack of structure. When there's a lack of structure and we feeling that we need more structure, then we procrastinate. We kind of think about it. We kind of try to think about what type of structure, or we try to even avoid it because it's not enough structure for us to be able to wrap our hands or our minds around in some way. So that's one way in which procrastination can show up. But also can show up, which many people are familiar with perfectionism, that we need to get it just right. We need to do it just right. And so we procrastinate because we're feeling as if it's not perfect yet. But realize what I said to you before about, in many episodes, about the ego persona. The ego persona will be that aspect that has to be perfection, has to be just right. Therefore, it's not worth doing since it's not perfect. Is that true? It's not true at all. It's better to do something than nothing. Better to put an effort for it than not put an effort for it at all. The third way in which procrastination may show up, which we're not aware of, and it's very subtle, and this is where the barrier comes in too, to our own progress and advancement in our soul, is it can show up as self-deception. That we deceive ourselves thinking, oh, it's not going to take too much time. But we haven't given it really thought about the details in which what is being asked or requested of us may take more time than we're giving it credit because we haven't done the detailed level of thinking about it. So that deception about, wow, I thought it was going to take only a couple of hours, but it took doubly or triply the amount of time. And the key thing is do we learn from it, from past experiences and knowing what types of time is needed to do certain things, and do we factor those things in? The other type of procrastination may show up in the form of not getting things done or moving forward is because we want to please others too much. We want to do it, we're a people pleaser to the point that it's hindering us because we're not sure if a person's going to like it or not like it, but this person may like it, but that person may not like it. Therefore, do I really want to do it? Because I want everyone to like it. And so we're basing our decisions and our thinking about other people liking it versus, is it the right thing for me to do with the information that I have currently? And let me move forward and put it out there for other people to give feedback. And so then I'll have enough time to acclimate or change or to modify as needed. So that's another aspect in terms of that goes on with procrastination. Another one is the fifth, and overcoming the odds. There are people who like an adrenaline rush. That means getting it done under the 12th hour just before 11:59 and the bell strikes 12. Wow, we got it done, and we get this adrenaline rush that goes on, and that kind of spurs us along, and we have to be careful of that because we only can say we feel alive when we have that adrenaline rush. But is that true? No, not at all. How might it have an impact on our soul progress? Is what you're also thinking about. Now, the next one is what I thought about was the sixth one would be you don't believe you will enjoy the task that's being asked for you to do. And so since you don't think you're going to like what you're going to have to do, and there's some degrees of complexity of the task or assignment that's given to you, you procrastinate. I don't think I'm going to like this. So you kind of find a way to demotivate yourself into doing it. And it may not be true because hasn't there been times in which we thought we wouldn't like something, but once we got into it, hey, this is pretty good. This is not bad at all. And in fact, I'm liking this. I'm finding out new things I didn't find out before, learning things that I wouldn't have learned otherwise. So the seventh one, and that relates to the procrastination and why it's taking place, is rumination. We're ruminating about it. We're fixated on kind of maybe the negative thinking that's taken place with that particular issue or what's being requested of us to be done. And we're ruminating about, oh my God, this person always asked me to do this, and I never liked this person nor liked that, what they asked me to do, and I just don't want to do it. And that rumination, maybe we have to flip that rumination and say, what are the possibilities here? And how might I grow from it? And again, we're thinking at it from the level of soul progress. Because some of these things I'm talking about stand as barriers to our soul progressing on its spiritual path and achieving its best self, our best self. Now the next, I'm just going to talk about two more. Maybe fear. By procrastinating, we're protecting ourselves from fear. Fear of what people may judge us in the wrong way, was similar to the other one I talked about, or fear that we're not going to do it right. Again, you see how these all tie in together with something I've talked about as well. But also the fear of judging by others as well as we judging ourselves, being hyperly critical of ourselves. And that feeling of being critical or condemning of ourselves, which I talked about in an episode, I believe it's in February, that it really moves us into stagnating. Because where there is fear, there's usually a slowing down process and a hesitancy that takes place, and that we don't want to advance. We don't want to engage because of fear of some type of pain, hurt, or disappointment. Now, another, and the last one I'll talk about as for why we may go about procrastinating is this self-defeating behaviors. That we're engaged in behaviors that gobble up our time, like surfing the internet or the social media platforms, because we really don't want to do this task. And now we've got a habit of always surfing the internet when we don't want to do something. Or we may end up feeling as if it's going to impact our self-confidence or self-esteem in some ways. And so we engage in these self-defeating behaviors and slowing things down to a point that we don't make much progress or advancement. Therefore, we lose not only attentiveness in doing what's being asked of us, but also lose focus. And so we end up doing other things because our focus has been broken. There are these different levels and reasons that go on with procrastination. And the drivers of procrastination is usually it boils down to, first and foremost, a habit, but also to self-confidence or self-esteem types of issues, and fear/anxiety. And when we're feeling some degree of emotional fear or anxiety or feeling upset about something or being what's asked, our feelings really act as static. And these negative types of feelings act as a barrier to our soul's ongoing need to evolve and grow. And we end up creating a sense of styminess, a sense that, well, but let me flip it. It can contribute to our sense of having low self-esteem. And we want to do things that increase our self-esteem, that allows us to feel like we're accomplishing and getting things done. So, wouldn't procrastination be the opposite of us building self-confidence, having higher self-esteem? How do we move and start thinking about confidence and what would allow us to feel more confident in doing what is being requested of us, that is being asked of us to do, be it task or be it a chore? How can it help build self-esteem, self-confidence, empowering us to feel better? Maybe we need to start thinking from that vantage point and use one of the qualities that I talked about, I believe it was in episode 8, and also opening up to your Divinity, which is the ebook that I wrote. And maybe the way in which we flip this is move away from the things that create density. Yes, density. Move away from those things that create density. And some of those things I've just already described. But what's density? And again, this is in episode 8. I talk a little bit more about this and also the book. It's dense energy now secretly intensified towards you. It's dense energy now secretly intensified towards you, weighing you down, making you feel heavy, making you feel burdened in some ways, because of this density that procrastination can create, especially if it's persistent procrastination, that it keeps on happening in a particular area of our life. It may not be pervasive like that 20% I talked about earlier, but it may be in a specific area that we know it shows and rears its head and that we tend to procrastinate. It may be based upon the person. It may be based upon the situation. So start thinking about that, because when we can lift that density, and the avenue that we can do that is something I talk about in episode 38, and that's T.O.P. 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 The T is training the mind. So what I'm asking you to do is train your mind to begin thinking differently about procrastination and see it more as density, and how may I get on top of the density, and that I don't have to go there. I don't have to go down that dead-end road where procrastination I know will lead me, because as you reflect and you think about and have the higher view and get on top of these themes that are occurring with your procrastination, then we start to say, oh, okay, I understand. So my thinking about this, I need to flip it a little bit and look at where is the point of energy for me in doing this? What additional questions do I need to ask? How do I need to know that this is an old habit that I've gotten myself into, and I want to form a new habit by looking at this from chunking it down and looking at bite-sized pieces by which I can go about taking on this particular task or a request that's being asked of me? That there's maybe little ways that we can inch our way through to help us to build a momentum of getting on top of our particular area that we find ourselves procrastinating around. So it's now moving you into what I talked about in that episode 38 of the O. And the O is really focused on opportunities. How does this situation, how does this request is an opportunity for my soul growth, my soul progress? How might I include my soul in undertaking this particular task? How might I ask myself, so, asking your soul, how might I do this in a way that honors my soul? And don't forget, a part of our soul is intuition. So it does require some quietness and or stillness to listen as you're walking or as you're driving your car and you have the music turned off, just asking the question and listening. Oh, I can do this from this standpoint. Oh, I never thought about doing it in this particular way. Oh, I didn't ask this question and I need to ask this particular type of question. You're now in communion with your inner self, your soul self, the substance of your life, getting a better understanding of how to expand the situation and not allow the density of procrastination to settle in and keep you stuck or stymied in a particular way, which is unique to you. Now the P is related to privately being willing to check in with yourself. So as you're moving along with that particular task or that particular project, you're checking in. How are we doing? How are we moving forward here? What more joy can we put into what we're doing? How can we help others in the project, as well as continue to do what we need to do in the project? How do we begin to privately start making shifts and changes in how we approach the particular project, either if it's an individual project or if it's with a team that we're working with, or it's with a chore that we're engaged in, and making it in sizable pieces, and then trying to infuse some joy, some humor, some engagement with others who may be doing something similar to what we're doing. So they're not feeling that we're doing it all by ourselves. If it's persistent, because this is persistent procrastination. If it's persistent, that means it's happening again and again and again in the things that we do. It may not be that 20% of individuals who are going to procrastinate on everything that they do, but it may be significant enough that it's a theme, a pattern that you need to be able to address and look at. Because where there is procrastination, there is going to be some resistance. And with that resistance, you need to look at what the resistance is around. And it usually ties into an emotional element. of being hurt or being disappointed or feeling put upon or feeling as if people don't recognize or accept all the things you've already have done. It could be many different reasons. But if you're on a spiritual path, you're trying to figure out what it is and then resolve it and keep moving forward. This whole aspect that we're talking about is your soul always wants to use any task, any event, any circumstance, even any situation as a modem for self-mastery, as a modem for gaining skills, talents, awareness about yourself, about the situation you find yourself in, that allows you to be able to tune into something greater than yourself. Tune into, through your soul, your mighty I am presence, your God source, your Atman. Again, you're tuning into something greater than yourself, because what you're trying to ultimately do is take away the procrastination and pass the test. Pass the test that gains you mastery. Take away procrastination and say, regardless, I'm doing it anyway because it's the right thing to do. It's the most harmonious thing for me to do. It is a way for me to continue to grow, advance, and learn through my experiences. Because what procrastination does, it stops us from growing. It stops us from advancing. It stops us from being in tune with our soul need and soul evolution and growth and advancement. And we want to know that that substance of our life, which is our soul, which is that gold essence, which is that fabric that we're tied into the greater sense of who God is who we are, then why do you want to procrastinate? Procrastination shrinks us. And inadvertently, it puts us in a straitjacket, cutting us off from our soul's need for growth and advancement. Procrastination, we don't realize, is another form, or we may realize it, it's another form of vacillating in our decision-making process, stalling, or even postponing. And maybe it may be due to some degrees of inadequacy that we may have. But ultimately, procrastination wastes time. And time is very important to the soul's evolution. Procrastination, it puts us in this not only straitjacket, but this gray zone of mediocrity of your own progress and movement forward. And those who are walking a spiritual path have to realize, and if they're really serious about walking a spiritual path, have to realize that there are timetables by which your soul needs to move on that path. That is unique timetables to your soul in its evolution. And you want to meet those timetables, because it allows you to be able to continue to accelerate in your growth, in your advancement, in having greater happiness, attunement, greater sense of balance and peace, and a greater sense of inner calmness within you that allows you expansiveness of all the gifts that your soul has to offer on planet Earth. One of the things I was thinking about with this procrastination is it requires something. And it requires a superpower that I call discernment. Discernment. That we have to be able to look at things in a more discerning way. And when we're able to do that, and what I mean by discerning way is that we are willing to be able to slow things down, not in the form of procrastination, which you're delaying, avoiding, or stopping, or not doing something, but you're slowing it down on purpose in order to have that greater sense of attunement. And that comes for listening. Being in listening grace. It's like asking yourself the question, when we're talking about the thinking part of TOPS. And now you're observing what is coming into you. Because in that pause and asking your soul the question, it is your soul's higher source by which you're being guided by. And so your attunement with your soul allows you to attune with that I am presence, your God source, the Atman, the Buddhic light. Whatever, again, you wish to call that source, I leave that up to you. But what you're learning to do is being willing to be obedient to what you hear as the response or the prompt that comes back to you as what you need to do in the particular situation that you're finding yourself in that you may be procrastinating around. In some ways, with that particular work project or that particular assignment that you're doing, you are willing to be able to ask your inner self, what do I need to do here? How might it be best for me to do it? What is it missing here that I need to know? Because our higher self knows so much more than our ego persona. And procrastination comes out of the ego persona because it's trying to figure out it from a lower standard. But the God source is the highest standard that we can figure things out by and be guided by. And maybe with that particular assignment or task that we're doing, we may find out, you know what? Maybe I need to do it in a different way. Maybe I need to say, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it because of all the other things on my plate right now. And can I get to it by a certain date and time and negotiate a little bit? So that you're also thinking about if others are involved, and maybe they can take the first leg of things and you take the second leg or the third leg, and you then work together to get the rest of it done. There may be different types of modifications through your pausing, listening, that your inner self says, why don't you try doing it this way? Or look at it from this perspective or direction. It's allowing you, through that pause and a willingness to ask for greater discernment about how you need to proceed, which is the higher road in which you're trying to take. It's like those old cars, I'm not sure if they're old now, but you used to have a stick shift. And I'm not sure if people still have stick shifts, but you put it in different gears. Well, you're putting in a different gear, which is like a different frequency, which is your higher self, your soul self, that you're asking things by, so that it allows that attunement that you're having with your higher self to be able to move it to a different frequency. And you're hearing things from a different frequency. And you're being moved forward in a different way than just trying to do it or not do it, which happens with procrastination. What we're actually doing then is we're moving ourselves to greater inner attunement. Soul, Christ, God presence. We're having the attunement with our spiritual self to know how we need to proceed and move forward. And that allows us then to move to God's glory and work through us in all that we do in our activities that we have going on to the glory of God, to glorify God in the things that we do. We want to expand God's awareness of himself by us being the best self that we can be in our interactions and in anything that is being requested of us. Whenever you feel a sense of procrastination, it is really a ripe time to say, what's up? Why am I procrastinating around this? And how does it hinder and help my self-confidence? How does it hinder and help my soul advancement? And where there is soul advancement, there is also self-confidence, which is increased, self-elevation of who you are. So all experiences that we are engaged in is trying to help us to better walk the spiritual path. And wherever there is procrastination, it usually does involve some level of the ego persona, which I've talked about before, that we want to say no to the ego persona, and we just want to say yes to our awareness that God is within us, that we are here to glorify all that God is in our interactions and to learn certain lessons. Something to think about. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining me for this episode on Mastering Life's Adventures, being your best self through soul evolution. If you have enjoyed what you've heard today, I would be delighted if you would share this episode with others, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe to my Mastering Life's Adventures podcast. Look forward to your joining the next episode. Please leave any comments or suggestions you might have below. Bye for now.